Catch the NBA playoffs on Sling TV, the most flexible live TV streaming service, putting consumers in control to watch games their way with flexible subscriptions. Want to catch one game or a full series on ESPN? Grab a 1, 3, or 7-day pass. If you want to catch as many games as possible, get a monthly subscription with our ABC, NBC, and ESPN combo package. Either way, Sling lets you watch the playoffs your way with no long-term contracts. Learn more at sling.com.
And away we go, episode 1308 of the Al Galdi podcast. It is Wednesday, April 22nd, 2026. It is the day before the first round of the 2026 NFL Draft, in which the Washington Commanders have the number 7 overall pick. This is the day after ESPN NFL Draft analyst Mel Kiper Jr. came out with his final big board for the draft. The big board came out on Tuesday morning. Here are his top 8 guys. Number 1, Fernando Mendoza, quarterback, Indiana. Number 2, Jeremiah Love, running back, Notre Dame. Number 3, Arvell Reese, edge defender / linebacker, Ohio State. Number 4, Sonny Styles, linebacker, Ohio State. Number 5, David Bailey, edge defender, Texas Tech. Number 6, Caleb Downs, safety, Ohio State. Number 7, Jordan Tyson, receiver, Arizona State. Number 8, Cornell Tate, receiver, Ohio State. So Kiper has Love as the second best overall player in the draft, has Tyson and not Tate as the WR1, and has University of Miami edge defender Ruben Bain Jr. all the way down at 16. Hello and welcome to this Wednesday installment of the Al Galdi podcast. Next segment, a good friend of this podcast is back, Sam Fortier. He covered the Washington Redskins / Washington football team / Washington Commanders for the Washington Post for the 2020 through 2024 season. So we, with Sam, are going to conduct a deep dive on Washington potentially trading down from 7. And I'm having Sam on for this because he 4 years ago wrote a really good article on NFL Draft trade value charts. April 25th, 2022, headline, quote, "Why the Jimmy Johnson draft trade chart has endured," end quote. So we're going to explore how aggressively Washington should be trying to trade down, when it is appropriate to stick and pick, the nature of these NFL draft trade value charts, why Sam is optimistic about the Commanders off their disappointing 2025 season, and more. Sam Fortier, next segment. And also on the show, I'll talk Washington Nationals and Baltimore Orioles. The Nats, they drew an astounding 12 walks in an 11-4 win over the Atlanta Braves at Nationals Park on Tuesday evening, snapping the Braves' 6-game winning streak. The O's, they overcame a 4-3 eighth-inning deficit, but blew a 5-4 eighth-inning lead, this in a 6-5 walk-off loss at the Kansas City Royals on Tuesday night. The Nats and O's have the same record. Each team in MLB's 2026 regular season is 11-13. Before we get to feedback, some college basketball. So the window within which players can enter the NCAA transfer portal this offseason now is closed. It was open from Tuesday, April 7th at midnight Eastern until Wednesday, April 22nd at midnight Eastern. So a 15-day window of April 7th through the 21st, although this is just a window for players to enter the portal. Players can choose their new schools beyond this window. A lot of big gets for Maryland in the portal. Great to see that. A lot of defections for Georgetown in the portal. And we on Tuesday afternoon had reports that one of Georgetown's best players, Malik Mack, is transferring to another Big East school, Providence. It was on March 31st that we had reports that Mack was entering the portal. You could hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You could email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Email from Sean on why Washington, if it sticks and picks at 7, should go offense. Right, Sean? Good day, Al. Hope and trust all is well with you and yours. My name is Sean, and I too overreacted to the first 48 hours of free agency and the assumed lack of action by the Commanders. I disappointed myself, LOL. However, in my defense, I do feel there was an inordinate amount of reporting and leaks this offseason pertaining to the team. We went from never knowing anything the team was doing to having seemingly all insiders knowing what players the team was in on. in on was a drinking game during the first 3 days of free agency. I digress, but as a result of my overreaction, I put myself in timeout. LOL. I unplugged. I have, of course, continued to listen to your podcast, Al. However, I unplugged from X and most other pods. I returned to my normal viewing and listening with the pending uniform reveal. I applaud the efforts of the organization to give us back the Redskins in every way the team feasibly can. I know it won't satisfy everyone, but at least this looks like the team we knew and loved. Additionally, the alternate uniform with the spear through the W and the upgraded black uniform are extra credit. All of that is to say this, Al. I selfishly hope the team addresses the offense in this draft. I expect and realize that if a highly graded defensive player is available at 7 and the team is unable to trade back, the move to make is to draft the defensive player. You get no argument from me. However, my point of consternation is the fact that I don't feel the team has done enough to help Jaden Daniels. The team shouldn't have to shoehorn an offensive player as the pick in this draft. However, other than cornerback, receiver is the most worrisome position on the roster. The team raised the floor of the group since we won't have to be forced to watch Chris Moore and Robbie Chosen trotted out on the field, nor will we need to hope Michael Gallup can give the team something once training camp starts. However, the receivers are Terry and then a lot of hope and best wishes after him, even if the team is operating under the mindset that the team is eventually going to pry Brandon Ayuk from the 49ers. You can't rely on that being your sole addition to the receiving position. One of the main goals this offseason is to change the conditions around Jaden so he doesn't feel the need to put on the Superman cape. You made the change at offensive coordinator. You're implementing more under center to the offense. The best way to help your quarterback not go into hero mode is to give him players who win early in routes. I grow tired of the narrative that great quarterbacks elevate the talent around them. Yeah, that's true. However, two of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play, Joe Montana and Tom Brady, had two of the better seasons in NFL history in 1989 and 2007, respectively. The correlation to those seasons is the fact that the 49ers and Patriots were stacked on offense those 2 years. The same should be done for Jaden. Again, I know you can't do everything in one offseason. However, if it were me, I'd build around my best player in this offensive tilted league we enjoy. The floor of the defense was raised in free agency. It is time to do so for the offense as well. Take care, Al, and continue to do great work. Well, thank you for the email, Sean. I want Washington, if it sticks and picks at 7, to take the best player available per the team's draft board. If that player is an offensive player, fine. If that player is a defensive player, fine. But offense does matter more than defense, and the team in free agency did do a lot more on defense than the team did on offense. So yeah, if I could script this and you're telling me that the team can't trade down, I would prefer that the team at 7 get a dynamic player on offense. You know, I have wondered if Washington at 7 might shock us all and go offensive line, but this is not viewed as a great offensive line class. The momentum now is that Notre Dame running back Jeremiah Love will be gone before 7, but if Washington at 7 took a receiver, say Ohio State's Carnell Tate, great, no problem. If the team traded down to later in the first round, got more draft capital, and took a receiver like USC's Mekhi Lemon or Arizona State's Jordan Tyson or Texas A&M's Casey Concepcion, great, no problem. Washington does still need dynamic offensive playmakers. I mean, there's no such thing as having too many dynamic offensive playmakers, but the reality with the offense is this. If the QB1 is healthy, if JD5 is healthy, then the offense should be good, period. What can't happen is what happened this past season. Jaden Daniels playing in just 7 of Washington's 17 regular season games. What is Washington going to do with that number 7 overall pick? ESPN NFL analyst Peter Schrager, he on his podcast, The Schrager Hour, in an installment that came out on Monday, said that Washington really likes Carnell Tate. Here you go.
7 Commanders. My latest intel is I've heard Carnell Tate is their guy. Again, this could change. Carnell Tate could be sitting there at 7. And then you have your reliable wide receiver. You have another Ohio State guy. You pair with Terry McLaurin and you go to work. If Sonny Styles is sitting there, I believe Adam Peters would love to have his future Fred Warner, and that would be Sonny Styles, a guy Adam Peters, of course, had Fred Warner in San Francisco and is trying to reshape and rebuild this thing in that mold. The wild card in that 7 pick for the Commanders, obviously a trade back is a possibility for them. They have no second round pick, so we've heard them linked many times to be a trade back team. The wild card for the Commanders would be David Blau, the new offensive coordinator. And based on how the first 6 picks go, there is a very strong possibility that Carnell Tate is not on the board anymore. And you go back to David Blau when he played with the Detroit Lions and who his guy was, or a guy that he watched, or a guy that he knows well, and it's Amon-Ra St. Brown. Who is the Amon-Ra St. Brown avatar in this draft? It's the Blitnikoff winner, Mekhi Lemon out of USC. So 2 names for the Commanders that I would just put in the back of your mind on this one. Carnell Tate, if he's there, and then don't be shocked if it's Mekhi Lemon. A David Blau pick. That's what we're doing. That's where we're going. That would be a big swing. But knowing Adam Peters, I think he's an excellent evaluator of talent. And if Tate is on the board, I think that is hit that one right on the fairway. That is a great building block. Awesome kid. Everything checks out.
All right, so we have that from Peter Schrager, and we also have ESPN NFL insider Adam Schefter on his podcast, the Adam Schefter Podcast, in an installment that came out on Monday. Schefter with Ty Schmidt of the Pat McAfee Show on what Washington will do at 7.
All right, Shefty, what about the Commanders at 7?
Boy, there's a few ways they could go. I think that they obviously could use a wide receiver. And somehow if Carnell Tate slides past 4, 5, 6, like that's a natural for his clean talents to be in Washington. Commanders also could go with the first cornerback on the board, who I believe will be Mansour Delane from LSU. He's healthy right now, as opposed to Dramon McCoy and the questions that exist about his knee. The other thing would be if somehow Jeremiah Love, which I no longer think, slides down that far, that would be his floor. 7. Not getting past 7, but I think right now he's looking at 3 or 4, frankly. So the Commanders have some holes, and they don't have a second-round pick, I don't believe. So they've got to make the early picks count. A lot of pressure on that franchise after a down year. But I think that they have some... And the other guy that I would watch out for, like, can they pass on Caleb Downs here? Can they pass on Caleb Downs? Also interesting if he's still available.
Yeah, Washington does not have a second-round pick in this draft. Washington in the 2026 NFL Draft has the following picks: a first-round pick, the number 7 overall pick, a third-round pick, the number 71 overall pick, a fifth-round pick, the number 147 overall pick, a sixth-round pick, the number 187 overall pick, another sixth-round pick, the number 209 overall pick, and a seventh-round pick, the number 223 overall pick. So Washington has just 2 picks over the first 4 rounds and just 3 picks over the first 186 picks. Our team needs more draft capital. Is Washington at 7 going to trade down or stick and pick? Well, we as Washington, D.C. sports fans know quite a bit about rebuilds, right? Spring is a great time of year to reset your wardrobe, but unlike the Nats and Washington Wizards rebuilds, a resetting of your wardrobe doesn't take years. Thanks to Quince. Quince is great. The fabrics feel elevated, the fits are thoughtful, and the pricing actually makes sense. Quince makes high-quality, everyday essentials using premium materials like 100% European linen and an insanely soft flow-knit activewear fabric. Quince's men's linen pants and shirts are lightweight, breathable, and comfortable, basically the perfect layer for spring. The pants strike the right balance between laid-back and refined, so you look put together without trying too hard. And maybe the best aspect of Quince is that its prices are 50 to 60% less than those for similar brands. How? Well, Quince works directly with ethical factories and cuts out the middlemen, so you're paying for quality, not brand markup. Everything is designed to last and make getting dressed easy. Refresh your wardrobe with Quince. Go to quince.com/Goldie for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/Goldie. Free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/Goldie. Look, choosing life insurance is tricky. Heck, life insurance as a topic can be uncomfortable, but Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. You'll get your lowest rate from Ethos' network of trusted carriers. And know this, Ethos has a rating of 4.8 out of 5 stars on Trustpilot with over 4,000 reviews. Take 10 minutes today to get covered with life insurance through Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/Al Galdi. That's ethos.com/Al Galdi. Ethos.com/Al Galdi. Application times may vary. Rates may vary. We've all been there. You're away for the weekend, the big game is on, and you realize you're restricted from watching. Or maybe you're trying to check the latest lines on your betting app, but your local network is blocking the site. These are the ultimate unforced errors. You can prevent this from happening to you with IPVanish. IPVanish is the powerhouse VPN designed to keep you in the game no matter where you are. IPVanish helps you stay connected to your favorite team and streaming services while you travel, but it's not just about watching the game. For the bettors out there, IPVanish provides an extra layer of security and privacy that helps you access your account safely on public Wi-Fi. Plus, IPVanish is lightning fast, so you won't have to worry about lag during those crucial live betting moments. Right now, get a massive discount at IPVanish.com. That's IPVanish.com to get started today. Secure your play and go to IPVanish.com. Hey, if you are listening to this podcast via Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you can rate the podcast with a star rating. 5-star ratings are greatly appreciated. They help us out a lot. Thank you for doing them. It is a pleasure to welcome back to the Al Galdi podcast Sam Fortier. Sam worked for the Washington Post from April 2019 to this past February when the paper ended its sports section as we knew it. Great decision, and now the Post already is walking back that decision somewhat. Sam since has gotten a job with Notice, N-O-T-U-S, stands for News of the United States. But Sam for the Post covered the Washington Redskins / Washington football team / Washington Commanders for the 2020 through 2024 seasons, and he during that time wrote a number of really good pieces, including a piece that came out on April 25th, 2022, headline quote, "Why the Jimmy Johnson Draft Trade Chart Has Endured," end quote. And so, with my desire for, and the talk of the potential for, Washington to trade down from its number 7 overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, to the first round for which is this Thursday night, I thought that we'd have Sam on to discuss the phenomenon of trading down in NFL drafts, as well as the state of the Washington Commanders. So you can follow Sam on X at Sam4TR. That's Sam, the number 4, and the letters TR. He also is a great follow on TikTok, on which he has the same handle at Sam4TR. Hey, Sam, how are you?
I'm doing well, Al. Thank you so much for having me and for the nice intro. It's a pleasure to be back on the pod with you. And so, to me, the trade charts pretty clearly show, as two economists showed early in the 2000s, that value declines less sharply than the Jimmy Johnson trade chart suggests. And I think to understand this, we got to go back. The Jimmy Johnson trade chart is actually not the name of the guy who made it up. It's Mike McCoy, a guy that works for the Cowboys. And basically when he did it in the early 90s, he looked at the previous 4 years of trades and he just said, okay, if these are the trades of where they're going, I'm going to make a curve basically and just say, okay, I'm assigning a random value, 3,000 to the top pick, and then it's going to go down to all the way to the high 500s in the late 30s. And so basically these economists were saying, okay, that is just codified gut. Like that is just saying that who the right guy is at number 1, when clearly that's not the case. And so all these charts over the last 20 years that have been developed are just saying, hey, you are not as smart as you think you are. There is some nuance to this. If you're looking for a star, drafting one of the top 5 or the top 10, that is a much likelier place to find a star. But if you want a good, solid, starting caliber player, you're just, you're only a little bit less likely to find one in the 3rd than in the late 1st, for example.
And that speaks to a very humbling but also very true reality. NFL teams are not as good at the NFL draft as they think/hope. And look, in fairness to the teams, the draft is hard. It's not easy. There very much is a crapshoot element to the draft, but teams' hit rates on picks just aren't especially high.
Absolutely. And I think GMs have become both more aware of that over the last few years and more aware of the idea that that you have to be aggressive. You have to be realistic about where your team is. So I think you're seeing, a lot of these teams are trading out, right? I think the Giants, for example, them just trading Dexter Lawrence, I think they're realistic that they're not going to win a Super Bowl this year. So it's actually more valuable for them to have the 10th pick and the contract that comes with whoever they select than a guy like Dexter Lawrence who's in the prime of his career. And so I think you're seeing more aggression and more realism from these GMs over the last 20 years as the analytics age has kind of caught up to football.
So something that has come up regarding Washington potentially trading down from 7 is the idea of the team needing blue chip players. And so the argument is the team should not trade down. The team should stay at 7 and get a blue chip player. And my thing is, you can find a blue chip player at any point in the first round. If your head of football operations, in this case, Adam Peters, is who he is supposed to be, then you should be best off by him trading down and getting more picks with which he can get good players.
Yeah, I do. I will say I am a little sympathetic to that argument, though, just because, when I was on the beat, right, when Washington, quarterbacks are the exception to every rule. So when they stayed at 2 and took Jaden, I don't think anyone was upset about that. But, for example, when they stayed at 2 and took Chase Young instead of taking a quarterback or taking someone else, I think that even though that didn't work out, I do think that is a defensible process because when you look at the draft, left tackle, corner, edge rusher, those are positions that are premium positions. It's very hard to find, impact players later in the draft. They don't often reach free agency. Laramie Tunsil is obviously a big example, a big aberration in that respect. But, if you're Adam Peters and company and you think that Carnell Tate or whomever is by far the best receiver and helping Jaden is the most important thing, I can see the argument being made for that. But at the same time, as we're talking about, there's so much uncertainty. That guy has to pan out. And with the Commanders not having a ton of picks in the top 100, the top 150, as they did in Adam Peters' earlier drafts, where you can overcome a miss, the margin for error just gets way, way thinner. So I don't want to say it's obvious they should trade down. I do think there's an argument to do it, but if you do it, that puts a lot of pressure on getting that pick right.
What about the great player at the non-premium position? Some of the perceived best players in the 2026 NFL Draft play non-premium positions. Notre Dame running back Jeremiah Love, Ohio State linebacker Sonny Styles, Ohio State safety Caleb Downs. Is the great player at the non-premium position worthy of Washington taking with its number 7 overall pick as opposed to trading down?
I hate to say it depends, but I do think it depends because, right, Micah Parsons coming out of Penn State did not play a premium position, quote unquote. He was listed as a linebacker, non-premium position. But Dan Quinn in Dallas had a clear plan for him and developed him into a star player. He was able to use him in multiple spots and the vision really fit the skill set. And so to me, like Kyle Hamilton in Baltimore, non-premium position, premium player. So if you take any of those guys that you listed, and I'm not familiar with them, I have not been following the draft as closely as I have been in years past, a quick disclaimer, but if Dan Quinn has a plan for them, if he can say, okay, I can see where I can get Micah Parsons production, that's obviously putting a really, really big expectation on someone. But if you could think, okay, this is why we should use this pick on this guy, I think it's defensible. But again, like with staying at 7, you really have to be confident that you're going to get a massive, massive boost from that guy.
Regarding the NFL draft trade value charts, so I find them so interesting, but there are many NFL draft trade value charts. So the one that I like the best is the Fitzgerald Spielberger /overthecap.com NFL draft trade value chart, but there also is the Chase Stewart /Football Perspective NFL draft trade value chart. There is the Rich Hill NFL draft trade value chart. And of course, there is the most famous NFL draft trade value chart, the Jimmy Johnson NFL draft trade value chart, which became famous during Johnson's time as Dallas Cowboys head coach, February 1989 to March 1994. But as you mentioned earlier, the chart actually was the work of Mike McCoy. Mike McCoy was a minority owner and vice president of the Cowboys from the time that Jerry Jones bought the team in February 1989 until 1996. Which NFL draft trade value chart is best?
Al, I always like talking to you about this stuff because you know about it coming in, and I think that like it really is kind of a flavor thing, right? If you're someone who likes approximate value, the metric that Pro Football Reference uses to evaluate players, you're going to lean toward the Chase Stewart chart. If you like contract value, if you're saying, okay, how does this contract stack up to the rest of the market? You're going to, favor the Fitzgerald Spielberger chart. So to me, it's a flavor thing, but all these charts have benefits, have drawbacks. And so I think that's one of the things that is so interesting to me about football. That's one of the reasons I love football so much is it's not easily solvable. It's not a series of one-on-one matchups in the way that baseball is. And I think the same thing with the charts. The Jimmy Johnson chart, I think, is clearly flawed. And so many people have been able to demonstrate that over the years. But what is the right way? What is the best way to overcome that? I think that people are still trying to figure that out, which makes football an unsolved problem, which makes it fun and makes it like really interesting to think about. So if you're Adam Peters and you say, okay, we're going to develop our chart and your chart could change year to year because your board's going to change. How many round 1 grades do we give out? How many round 2 grades do we give out? And so forth. What positions are there? Where do we think, we don't need a quarterback this year? Okay, how does that change our chart? So to me, like this is the interesting thing. I like Fitzgerald Spielberger because I like using contract value. I like using the market. But to me, like if you said, hey, I like Chase Stewart's better, I like Rich Hill's better, I'd be like, okay, like what's your case? Let me hear it out.
Safe to say that many, if not most, if not all, NFL teams have their own internal proprietary NFL draft trade value charts?
Oh, 100%. I mean, when I wrote that story, I talked to, multiple GMs who said they have their own trade charts and they're using Jimmy Johnson because that's just basically the currency in the NFL. And so, one guy gave me an example of, hey, if I'm a smart team, and I want to trade with a dumb team. I say, hey, I want this pick. And the dumb team says, oh, give me 2 third-round picks. Like if I'm the smart team, I'll say, okay, I'm not going to give you 2 third-round picks. I'm going to give you a 2nd and a 5th. And the other GM could be enticed by the shiny thing, the 2nd-round pick, and not realize. And on the Jimmy Johnson trade chart, it's going to look the same. But with the 2nd-round chart or the 2nd-round pick, it looks nice, but it's actually less, you're giving up less if you're using your own internal chart and you think that the curve degrades more slowly than the Jimmy Johnson chart.
You got into this a bit earlier, but just to be clear, the reason that the Jimmy Johnson NFL draft trade value chart is antiquated is what?
Because that there is like the value declines more slowly than the Jimmy Johnson trade chart. The Jimmy Johnson trade chart says the first pick in the first round is worth 3,000 points. The last pick in the first round is worth like 590 points. And basically they're saying, hey, that is massively overvaluing the number 1 pick relative to the last pick in the first round because you can find good football players anywhere. And there's a lot of like randomness. There's a lot of unknown. Hey, you might like this guy, but something could happen. Or there's a character concern you don't investigate, or there's a medical problem, or, maybe the position coach and him don't vibe. There's just so many variables. And okay, like let's say you draft a shutdown corner, but you have no pass rush. And so you're asking that corner to, guard for longer. Like there are just so many variables that go into player performance. And I think that that's why you see over and over teams like the Ravens or the Eagles. They have not just high talent level, but they have a plan. They have an idea. Okay, this is how this guy's going to fit in. They amass more picks. You do still want more picks, obviously. But I think the Jimmy Johnson trade chart is antiquated because it does not appreciate that the value stays higher for longer.
We're talking with Sam Fortier, former Washington Commanders insider for the Washington Post. Were you surprised by how horribly Washington's 2025 season went?
Yeah, I mean, of course, like when I remember walking away from mandatory minicamp. That was my last day on the beat at work, basically. And even no, I mean, I covered the opener. The home opener against the Giants last year. And you walk into the locker room and there were just so many reasons for optimism, Marshawn Lattimore was fully healthy, and Laramie Tunsil was there, and Deebo Samuel was there, and they were just like blue chip players that were added to a team that really overperformed and was scrappy and had Jaden Daniels. And so seeing his injury concerns, seeing those things, it was really shocking the way things played out. Especially because, they always came up clutch in winning time moments the year before, and it felt like they blinked at this point over the past year. But the thing that, if you go back and look, one of the things that makes me optimistic for the Commanders this year is if you go back and look at it, Jaden has always had a difficult second year of high school. After his, great, freshman season, second year of high school, he broke, I think it was his pinky finger, maybe it was his thumb finger, but he broke that and had, a down year compared to the rest of his time. Second year in college, it's COVID. His grandparents pass away. He has, for the first time, he has as many picks as he has touchdowns. And then obviously, what happened for the rest of his college career. So his sophomore slump, if you will, is not unprecedented. And I think that he could bounce back in a major way.
That's something that Jaden Daniels has had this second-year curse, and it extended to his time as Washington's QB1.
Yeah, it's not just an NFL thing, which I think is interesting.
September 13th, 2017, The Ringer on that day came out with a piece by Sam Fortier on then Texas Tech head coach Cliff Kingsbury. The piece begins with Sam meeting Cliff at 4:06 a.m. at Texas Tech's football facility. Anyway, you know him better than most people in the media do. His tenure as Washington offensive coordinator lasted for just 2 seasons, so the team on January 6th parted with Kingsbury. What do you think about what happened between the Commanders and Kingsbury?
Al, that is an incredible deep dive by you. Great job with the research. I don't know the specifics. I don't know what happened. I don't want to pretend that I do. But I mean, obviously, Cliff's system, and I think Jaden spoke on it, but being a little caught off guard. His system, I think, is very quarterback friendly in the verbiage and the way that it uses guys. I know Marcus and Jaden. I talked to both of them in 2024 when obviously things were going really well. I don't know what happened there, but I think that even when I was at Texas Tech, I mean, things weren't going as well. And I know in Arizona that I talked to Cliff about the regrets that he had about the way he handled it and setting the foundation. So I mean, there's just I don't know, for whatever reason, things went poorly, but I know Cliff has ambitions to be a well-rounded head coach one day, and whether he will find those opportunities at the Rams, I don't know, but it certainly was really surprising to me on the outside looking in.
Cliff Kingsbury comes off like a really chill guy. I'm sure that he has an ego, but is he known to be difficult?
I think he's, demanding. They did a lot of walkthroughs. He wants to get things right, but he's open to, famously against Cincinnati, Terry McLaurin ran over to the sideline and changed the play on that touchdown that they had, or called his own play, and Cliff was open to that. He does give off a chill vibe. I think that he is someone who, in Arizona, when things were going poorly, or in Texas Tech when he wanted to design offense, but be the head coach, he would get in early. He would kind of retreat within himself. And so, guys seem to really like him. I don't know what went wrong in Washington, but I think that Cliff, can sort of withdraw in himself when things aren't going well and he wants to make them better. So whether that didn't vibe with AP or DQ or however that ended up, whether it was I know there was some reporting about whether it was the quarterback development plan that he had, putting Jaden at risk. I don't know that to be true, but to me, it's clearly there's something. It's been 3 straight stops where there's been some difficulty for him. But I think when it comes to scheming up offense, scheming up receivers, that part's never been in question. So how can he grow and evolve moving forward?
Sam Fortier, cover the Washington Redskins / Washington football team / Washington Commanders for the Washington Post for the 2020 through 2024 season. Sam, thank you. All the best.
Al, thank you so much for having me on. It's always a pleasant conversation.
All right, great to catch up with Sam. If you have a case, contact Chris Nace, the Nace Law Group, accident and injury lawyers that will fight for you and win for you. Lead attorney Chris Nace is a big Washington Commanders fan and big supporter of this podcast, and his firm wins trials. Just recently, an $8 million jury verdict in Baltimore City Circuit Court. If you have a case, contact the Nace Law Group. Call 202-902-7611 or visit Washington, D.C., injurylawyers.com and tell the Nace Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. The Nace Law Group is tremendous. It is a Washington, D.C.-based family law firm that handles medical malpractice, personal injury, birth injury, legal malpractice, and consumer protection cases, offering aggressive advocacy for victims in Washington, D.C. and West Virginia. If you feel that you've been wronged, if you think that you've been wronged but aren't sure, contact the Nace Law Group and schedule a no-obligation appointment. Call 202-902-7611 or visit Washington, D.C., injurylawyers.com and tell the Nace Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. Another dynamic offensive performance by the Washington Nationals, and it came in a blowout win over one of the best teams in MLB, an 11-4 win over the Atlanta Braves at Nationals Park on Tuesday evening in Game 2 of a 4-game series, snapping the Braves' 6-game winning streak. The Nats in MLB's 2026 regular season now are 11-13. The Braves in this regular season now are a National League East best 16-8, and the Nats' offense in this game was outstanding. 11 runs, 10 hits, which were 2 home runs, a double, and 7 singles. A whopping 12 walks, 5 for 20 with runners in scoring position. The 12 walks are tied for the second most walks by the Nats in a regular season game since the franchise moved to Washington, D.C. in the 2004-2005 offseason. The extent to which the Nats worked Braves pitchers in this game was tremendous. The Braves used 6 pitchers. They combined to throw 201 pitches over just 8 innings. Think about that. 201 pitches over just 8 innings. The Nats got to the Braves starting pitcher, the former Nats prospect Reynaldo Lopez. He allowed 4 runs in 1 inning. He faced 11 batters, got just 3 outs, gave up a home run, 4 singles, and 3 walks. 3 Nats batters especially stood out: James Wood, Curtis Mead, and Luis Garcia Jr. James Wood got on base 5 times. He is the Nats starting right fielder and number 1 batter, went 1 for 2 with a solo homer and 4 walks, one of which was intentional. Wood in the Nats' 1-run second had a leadoff full count opposite field homer to left center field for a 4-1 Nats lead. The homer went a projected 412 feet per Statcast. James Wood for this regular season now has an OPS of 948 and now has a team best 8 home runs. Curtis Mead, he came off the bench to serve as the Nats DH and went 1 for 2 with a 3-run homer and a walk. Mead in the Nats' 3-run 8th had a went-out 3-run homer to left field for an 11-4 Nats lead. Mead in this regular season has been productive, 51 plate appearances, OPS of 772. And Luis Garcia Jr. had a 4-hit game. He is the Nats starting first baseman and number 2 batter, went 4 for 5 with a 2-run double, an RBI single, and 2 other singles. And he had a stolen base. Garcia in the Nats' 1-run 5th had a 2-out opposite field RBI single to left center field on a 1-2 pitch for a 5-3 Nats lead. Garcia in the Nats' 3-run 7th had a 1-out first pitch, bases loaded 2-run double to the right center field gap for a 7-3 Nats lead. Luis Garcia for this regular season has an OPS of just 648, but if you care about RBI, he is number 3 on the Nats in RBI 15. But the Nats, with their new process based on analytics and sports science and led by President of Baseball Operations Paul Taboni, continue to be shockingly good offensively in this season number 1 of a restarted rebuild. The Nats over 24 games have scored 136 runs, 5.67 runs per game. This was Nats manager Blake Butera during his postgame press conference on Tuesday night on the Nats offense, and then you hear a follow-up exchange between my co-host on the Nats Chat podcast, Nats insider Mark Zuckerman of NatsJournal.com, and Butera.
Yeah, 12 walks. Just really proud of our guys, just executing their plan, waiting for a good pitch to hit. Obviously, Lopez is a really good pitcher. I know he didn't have it tonight necessarily, but I think our hitters did a really good job of making him come to them and laying off some pitches just outside of the zone, some really close pitches too, to get him out of the game early, and then continued that same approach with the relievers that they brought in as well. So I think just as a whole, our hitters doing a good job of making them come to them and then executing when they did.
For a good part of the night, you guys weren't taking maybe like full advantage of that, but was the sense like, okay, keep at it, this will eventually...
Yeah. It was a little frustrating early because I felt like we had them on the ropes and didn't really capitalize in a couple situations where we could have maybe broken it open a little bit more earlier. But yeah, that was the message. Just like stick with it. Like we keep getting the same spots coming up with guys on base. Liked our chances to break it open, and it didn't really happen. I felt like till seventh or eighth there, but I thought the at bats were really good.
They very much were. The Nats starting pitcher in this 11-4 win over the Braves at Nationals Park on Tuesday evening was Foster Griffin. He was not great, but he lasted for 6 innings, and with the lack of innings from Nats starting pitchers so far in this regular season, and with the team in the midst of 17 consecutive days without a scheduled off day, you celebrate Griffin going 6 innings, and how he got to 6 innings especially stood out. Griffin allowed 3 runs in 6 innings. He gave up 5 hits, 4 of which were extra base hits, as he gave up 2 home runs, 2 doubles, and a single. He issued a walk. He recorded 3 strikeouts. He threw a lot of strikes, 96 pitches, 65 strikes, just 31 balls. So Griffin, in the top of the second, allowed a run on back-to-back 2-out doubles, a 2-out full count opposite field double by Mauricio Dubon to the right center field gap, and a 2-out RBI double by Michael Harris, the second to right field, to cut the Nats lead to 3-1. Griffin, in the top of the third, allowed a run as he gave up a 2-out solo homer by Drake Baldwin to right center field on an 0-2 pitch to cut the Nats lead to 4-2. The homer went a projected 438 feet per Statcast. Griffin, in the top of the fifth, allowed a run as he gave up a 1-out opposite field solo homer by Eli White to right field to cut the Nats lead to 4-3. Blake Butera, with 2 outs in the top of the sixth, went out to the mound, but he ended up leaving Griffin in the game, despite the next batter, the right-handed hitting Mauricio Dubon, having gone 2 for 2 versus the lefty Griffin, and Griffin induced a groundout by Dubon to end the top of the sixth and complete 6 innings, marking just the second time in 24 games in this regular season that a Nats pitcher went at least 6 innings. Blake Butera, via the Nats' new analytics-based process, has been really aggressive in pulling Nats starting pitchers from games. He, in this game, gave some leash to Griffin, and Butera was rewarded. This was Blake Butera during his postgame press conference on Tuesday night on Foster Griffin, and then you'll hear multiple follow-up exchanges.
I thought he threw the ball really well tonight. Felt really good about having him out there. Just wanted to talk to him, see where he was at, made sure he was in a good spot. Obviously, his pitch count was up there, but just felt a lot of confidence with him on the mound and wanted to let him finish that inning if he could and wanted to, and he did. Glad it worked out.
He seemed a little bit surprised. Maybe he thought he was coming out. I guess, what was the reaction from him when you told him?
Yeah, no, I just asked him how he felt. Wanted to make sure he wanted it right there, in which he did. And yeah, I just told him, hey, go get him. Like, this is you right here. Finish what you started. And now if he was like a little hesitant, then we would have gone to the bullpen there. We had somebody ready in the pen, but he looked good from the dugout. The stuff was all still there. He wanted it, so we wanted him on the mound.
You talked about him as someone who calls his own pitches, prepares a ton before games. When you kind of wrap up the Foster Griffin experience, where does your mind go?
I think the same thing. I still don't feel any differently than I did prior about just him being in control out there and using all of his pitches, being able to execute them all as strikes whenever he wants to in different counts. He's fun to watch pitch. He's like an artist out there painting and putting balls on the edges and mixing speeds and keeping hitters off balance, and it's fun to watch him do his thing.
Yeah, Foster Griffin per StatCast threw 7 different types of pitches in this game. He has been doing that, and he has been the Nats' best starting pitcher by far. Griffin, for this regular season, 5 games, all starts, ERA of 3.38, whip of 1.20. And the Nats' relief pitching in this 11-4 win over the Braves at Nationals Park on Tuesday evening was good. 3 Nats relievers combined to allow 1 run in 3 innings. Gus Varland tossed a scoreless top of the 7th. Cino Perez did struggle. He in the top of the 8th allowed a run. He gave up a single and 2 walks. So through 25 pitches, just 12 strikes versus 13 balls. But Clayton Beeter tossed a scoreless top of the 9th with 2 swinging strikeouts. Game 3 for the Nats against the Braves at Nationals Park. Wednesday evening at 6:45, the Nats list Zach Littell as their probable starting pitcher. If you are among the many people for whom buying eyeglasses has been complicated and costly, check out Warby Parker. Warby Parker, W-A-R-B-Y Parker. Nothing comes close to the quality, price, selection, and customer service of Warby Parker, which has revolutionized buying eyeglasses. Once you buy from Warby Parker, you realize how much easier it has made the entire process. Warby Parker's virtual try-on is a total game changer. You literally can try on glasses from your phone before you buy them. You just point your camera and boom, you see tons of frames on your face in real time. Warby Parker's prescription glasses start at $95, so you can actually get quality and stylish frames at an affordable price. And Warby Parker doesn't just offer incredible prescription glasses. It has everything that you need for happier eyes, including contacts, online eye exams, and sunglasses. Warby Parker is covered by major eye insurance plans. And how about this with Warby Parker? For every pair of glasses that Warby Parker sells, it also gives a pair to someone in need. Warby Parker has distributed over 20 million pairs of glasses to people in need through its Buy a Pair, Give a Pair program. Warby Parker is offering a great deal to listeners of the Al Galdi podcast. Right now, buy 1 prescription pair and get 20% off any additional prescription pairs at warbyparker.com/Galdi. That's 20% off additional prescription pairs when you go to warbyparker.com/Galdi. warbyparker.com/Galdi.
Big thanks to our sponsor, BetterHelp, for partnering with us for this important conversation about mental health.
This is Steve Smith here, former NFL wide receiver and host of the 89 show on YouTube. So having a counselor and working with BetterHelp, that gives you an opportunity to really start to unpack. But people don't understand, when you unpack things, you also open up a box that you're not always sure what's inside. So I think that's why seeing a professional is extremely important. If you need someone to open up to, visit BetterHelp. That's betterhelp.com/89 to get started.
Now, at McDonald's, wake up to a $4 breakfast meal deal. Wake up to a sausage McMuffin or a sausage biscuit, to hash browns, and wake up to a hot coffee. Get your $4 breakfast meal deal.
Limited time only. Prices and participation may vary. Prices may be higher for delivery.
Well, another wild game for the Baltimore Orioles at the Kansas City Royals, but this time a loss, a 6-5 walk-off loss at the Royals on Tuesday night in Game 2 of a 3-game series. This was a game in which the O's overcame a 4-3 eighth-inning deficit, but blew a 5-4 eighth-inning lead. And this was off the Orioles' 7-5 12-inning win at the Royals on Monday night in a game in which the O's overcame a 1-0 ninth-inning deficit. But bottom line, another loss for the O's, who in MLB's 2026 regular season now are 11-13. They lost despite being good offensively. 5 runs, 8 hits, which were 2 home runs, 2 doubles and 4 singles, 5 walks, 2 for 6 with runners in scoring position. And the O's lost despite getting back Adley Rutschman. The O's on Tuesday afternoon announced having activated Rutschman from the 10-day injured list, which he had been on since April 11th due to left ankle inflammation. He on Tuesday night as the Orioles starting catcher and number 3 batter went 2 for 4 with a 2-run homer and a single. Rutschman in the Orioles' 2-run 8th had a one-out full-count two-run homer to left center field for a 5-4 Orioles lead. Great to have him back. Also homering for the O's was Kobe Mayo. He is the Orioles starting first baseman and number 8 batter. Went 1 for 3 with a 3-run homer. Mayo in the Orioles' 3-run second had a one-out 3-run homer on a moonshot to left field for a 3-0 Orioles lead. The homer went a projected 439 feet per StatCast. Mayo so needed that. He, for this regular season, even after Monday night, 65 plate appearances, OPS of just 508. But the O's in this game were filled by their pitching. Their starting pitcher in this 6-5 walk-off loss at the Royals on Tuesday night was Shane Baz. He again was disappointing. He allowed 4 runs in 6 1/3 innings. He gave up 8 hits, which were 5 doubles and 3 singles. He issued 2 walks and 2 wild pitches. He recorded 4 strikeouts. He threw 98 pitches, 62 strikes, 36 balls. Shane Baz for this regular season now, 5 games, all starts, ERA of 5.08, whip of 1.55. The O's this past December 19th announced having traded 4 prospects and a draft pick to the Tampa Bay Rays for Baz. The O's on March 27th announced having agreed with Baz on a 5-year contract for the 2026 through 2030 seasons. He had been under team control through the 2028 season. The contract is a 5-year contract, reportedly worth $68 million, most money in a contract given by the team to a pitcher in franchise history. He needs to be better than what he has been for the O's so far. The O's gave up a lot to get him. They signed him to a contract extension before he ever pitched in a regular season game for them. He needs to be better than what he has been for the O's so far. The Orioles relief pitching in this 6-5 walk-off loss at the Royals on Tuesday night was not good. 3 Orioles relievers combined to allow 2 runs in 2 innings. Grant Wolfram tossed 2/3 of a scoreless inning. He in the bottom of the 7th faced 3 batters and got 2 outs, but Rico Garcia allowed 1 run in 1 inning. He in the bottom of the 8th gave up a leadoff homer by Michael Massey to right field to tie the game at 5, despite Garcia having had Massey down in the count at 1.12. The homer went a projected 412 feet per StatCast, and so the streak is over. Garcia entered the game having not allowed a run or a hit over his first 11 appearances in this regular season. A franchise record for most consecutive appearances by a pitcher to begin a regular season without allowing a run or a hit. But that streak now done. And Ryan Helsley had a really bad outing. He allowed 1 run in 1/3 of an inning. He in the bottom of the 9th allowed a run on 2 walks and 2 wild pitches. He could not find the strike zone. He threw 22 pitches, just 9 strikes versus 13 balls. So Helsley for this regular season is 6 for 6 on saves, has an ERA at 2.79, and has a strikeouts per 9 innings of 13.97. He overall has been good, but he also has a whip of 1.45. He has put a lot of guys on base. We, during the post-game session of O's manager Craig Albernaz on Tuesday night, had these exchanges on the Orioles pitching in this game.
Play for the Royals. How difficult was that to watch Helsley not necessarily have his command tonight?
Yeah, that was tough. Obviously very uncharacteristic of Helsley. It was tough to watch. He still competed, you know. Yeah, it was tough. He just didn't have the feel for pretty much anything today.
So the word uncharacteristic feel the same way about Rico Garcia that inning as well?
He just one pitch. I mean, he left the split hanging and Massey didn't miss it, you know, and after that he was nails, you know, just one mistake. And at this level, you make one mistake over the plate like that, you know, that's going to happen.
It seemed like Shane didn't really have fastball command. I mean, he didn't have a called strike on that 4-seamer until the 7th inning, but he still managed to kind of grind through. I mean, what did you see from him to maybe not have his best stuff, but still manage to give you the innings tonight?
Yeah, it didn't, like you pointed out, the fastball command wasn't there. He did a good job with the cutter for glove strikes. Curveball was still there, and he was efficient with his pitches too. You know, it was a relatively low pitch count going into the 7th, but also like little trouble putting away guys with 2 strikes. But yeah, the fastball command, that's something with all of our guys where we got to be able to establish that in the strike zone, and it just opens up all the off-speed pitches for our guys.
All right, the O's need to win this series. Game 3 for the O's at the Royals Wednesday afternoon at 2:10. The O's list Chris Bassett as their probable starting pitcher. And that'll do it for you and me for now, but there's more to come. Thursday's show, episode 1309, will provide you with more on the Washington Commanders as we will have arrived at the day of the first round of the 2026 NFL Draft. Also on Thursday's show, we'll talk Washington Nationals and Baltimore Orioles. The Nats are home to the Atlanta Braves Wednesday evening at 6:45 for Game 3 of a 4-game series. The O's are at the Kansas City Royals Wednesday afternoon at 2:10 for Game 3 of a 3-game series. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, and we'll talk to you on Thursday.
7 Commanders. My latest intel is I've heard Cornell Tate is their guy.